Now listen closely, children, adults, youth, for today I'm going to tell you about the other side of the story, the other version of the difference between good and evil, a different perspective we're going to take. Now, for many years, mankind has been on a quest to disregard the nature of this battle. That is the battle between good and evil. However, no matter how far man has run, he finds himself constantly in the crossfire. From the earliest conflict to ever be recorded to the constant war efforts on the hands of the modern youth, the constant need for one to satisfy evil cannot be tamed by one's own capabilities. So some say the battle is pointless and give up. And many of us succumb to pointless acts of violence consumed by massive amounts of hatred and only want to see the world burn. There's from Alfred in Batman. To put it simply, the reward evil offers is easier to attain, and most fail to grasp the concept that the harder the reward is to attain, the greater and more satisfying it is. So it is only natural to understand that the kingdom of heaven will only be open to a few that deserve it. Plenty men have lost their lives clinging onto the arms of the deities of war. And the number of testimonies has left, man desperate to understand why one has to commit the most heinous of acts in order to complement the availability of good, available for consumption and exchange. Continued existence on earth has constantly proven that only the strongest can experience the greatest form of peace. For being a pacifist while weak will cause your own conscience to eat you alive from the inside. One is never truly at peace if they are wise enough to understand that they have no chance of survival against the wake of evil. Which is why the greatest and wealthiest of nations have always sought after the most destructive of weapons to have in their arsenal. But even though man obtains power, he is always quick to lose it, which begs the question, are we fighting the real war, or have we been greatly deceived by our emotions as a whole? Religion offers an answer that many are not willing to accept, and many of us have become but a pointless group of creatures constantly reliving the same loop, wondering when we shall ever experience real change. It is very easy for the more intellectual groups to strive towards building their own reality that supplements their own rules. Although this leaves out those who are less intellectual to suffer because they are unable to build this false reality that intellectual beings have created for themselves. So then they believe in the constructs of these ideologies that have been placed in the environment they thrive in, since it is vital to change your environment to affect oneself's transformation. However, this plays out negatively because once this environment begins to fail, those who believed in this environment fall into a deep darkness and blame the intellectuals for the mess they are in, which leads to not only crime, but a number of things as well, but almost all of them fall under the bracket of evil. Which is why most great intellectuals are admired, because they were able to take on this responsibility, and it has become a norm that men of great power are men of great violence. And to put it in simple terms, more like regulated evil. So why is it that those who use viciousness in the name of violence are revered and worshipped? Well, this is because they commit evil in the name of good. But in the eyes of the evil, this is only but evil. For evil only desires to be against good, and evil cannot be evil to itself. So it needs victims to constantly exercise its evil on, with the goal of living in a society that intentionally exercises the use of evil underneath the terms of free will. Which is useless because, as historical evidence suggests, a society without no rules is a society that does not thrive. Which is why the most sought after society is the kingdom of God, the kingdom of heaven, which does not tolerate any form of evil. That's why all these humans, no matter what kind of human you are, you will eventually seek salvation, because after constantly receiving constant gratification by disconsidering the value of good, you will almost always find yourself feeling down, feeling like you've been living a pointless life. Plenty men who give testimonies from prison, plenty men who live out there who've gone to war, plenty women who've been abused and who have abused, and plenty groups of children who have done unspeakable acts. They all come to the same conclusion. So to sum it down into simpler terms, evil seems to seek to disconsider moral decay with the intention of providing shortcuts to a false narrative of spiritual success, which is catastrophic because it does not incorporate teachings that promote one's ability to tackle any situation without etching away towards the destruction of one's spiritual soul and self. Whereas good offers the reality of only gaining soul-enriching pure strength, guiltless conscience, and perfectly pure harmony and bliss that is everlasting as compared to the temporary satisfaction of evil, which is not as long-lasting as the bliss that good has to offer. So much so that in my eyes, the greatest form of greed one can be consumed by is one that leaves mankind longing to not only be satisfied by the mere fleeting pleasures of committing acts of evil, but instead sacrifice these pleasures of evil in order to gain the eternal form of pleasure. Like a fiend who seeks and dreams to live in a realm of an eternal drug-induced high. Which goes to show what evil is and why their relationship is so close. Because the evil in evil forces evil to offer quick forms of pleasure and distract the masses from what I theorized as a form of eternal joy and gratification. Hence, which concludes the difference between good and evil. So which shall you pick, young Padawan? Shall you live a life that will satisfy you only temporarily, or shall you wait a lifetime to be eternally satisfied? Good thing is you get to pick, and your future will be determined by your choice. Blue pill or red pill, bitch.